Well, there we go. Little harmonica, and we're here. Look at this. It's fun. Look at you. Look at me. We're all here. Nice to see everybody again today. Welcome to the program. My name is Dean. Not a full deck today, but we got a heck of a show for you because the world is kind of getting a little weird. It's getting crazy out there. That's what my mom said to me yesterday. She's like, "It's getting crazy out there, son." And I'm like, "Yeah, Mom, it is. It's getting crazy out there." So Ryan Lindley's going to be along in a couple minutes. Locke has a bit of a stomach bug, so he's going to be out today, which is good because we needed smarter people for this program. Please welcome a smarter person. Tech guru Amber Mack, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you, Amber. Great to see you. It's like a disco behind you. You got a real disco feel
I know.
behind you in that background.
I'm going for the gamer look over here. If you watch a lot of streaming shows in the gaming world, you know they have all these lights in the background. So I'm trying to achieve something like that while my husband is away from our studio and not able to facilitate the main set that we have.
That's okay. See, now you know you've made it when you've got multiple studios, right?
It's true. You know, I have to say that this little space that we just got set up in the past couple of weeks is great for me because I can actually do everything on my own. And I really like that idea that I don't have this fancy multi-camera setup where we're always switching cameras. It's just nice and simple, but we still have a good DSLR and a decent mic, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, I was gonna start the podcast by just talking tech equipment with you, just to piss everybody off. What kind of mic you got? What are we talking about with the DSLR? What kind of cameras are you using over there?
It's a pretty heel microphone, and I mean, we could go on forever about all the equipment, and it's always fun talking. You know, in fact, the lights behind me are just pretty affordable little LED lights, so just adding a little effect. So it doesn't take too much, and this is a very small corner, so it's amazing what you can do.
Dude, I'm shocked by how important corners became with streaming. Like, shocked. Corners of rooms used to be these dead spaces. And then when we started this, I had someone reach out to me and was like, "You have to corner your room." I'm like, "What are you talking about, corner my room?" He's like, "No, you got to do something in the corner of the room." It's amazing. Like this is literally the deadest part of my house. If you can see us on YouTube, Dean Blundell Show, or Twitch, Dean Blundell TV, or if you're watching on Amber's feed, this is like this is one of those things that was like, oh my God, streaming is incredible because we don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to put on normal clothes. I can wear pajama bottoms, and the corner of my room is finally an asset, Amber.
You're right. I mean, it adds a little bit. Well, if you actually show the corner too, it adds a little bit of depth. I think that's what some people forget is that oftentimes when you see these people doing Zoom calls, they tend to be backed up against a wall and it appears very flat. So you do want a little bit of depth and texture. That's why I think even bookcases look really nice. Again, it just has a different feel to it. I know this is not what we're talking about, but it's still important.
I want to talk about room rating all day. That's what I want to do. Stream room rating. That's what I want to talk about. But no, it's like little things like that. Like not a lot of people know, and I didn't know when I got into this. Is like the corner of the room's your best friend. You need good microphones, good cameras, all that other stuff. And you're right. It's not why we're here. Lindley just popped in. Ryan Lindley from the Sheeple Shepherd podcast.
My corner is here.
Yeah. See, he's using his corner too.
And I'm also not wearing pants.
Yeah.
Welcome to 2022.
A lot of us haven't, like a lot. I bet you if it was 100 days in a row that I worked on camera, I bet you I wasn't wearing pants for 80 of them.
It's weird. I don't know if this is a gender thing, but I'm always wearing pants when I'm in front of the camera.
No, but it's not like not in my underpants. I meant like pajamas and like a nice shirt, right? Or like shorts and a nice shirt, or joggers and a nice shirt. I haven't worn like nice clothes in probably 3 years.
Same.
Okay, that makes much more sense. I feel much more comfortable doing your show now that you have
I'll
pants
prove
on.
it. I'm wearing pants right now. I have pants on.
Anyway, I'm more comfortable knowing I have pants on too, Amber. But Amber Mack joins us. It's Ryan Lindley. Listen, this is crazy. We've been laughing a lot. You and I DM each other quite a bit, and we talk about not just State of the Union. We talk about everything from responsibility in schools to vaccines and restrictions, and I'm really grateful you're here because a lot of us have been trying to wade through what's been going on with social media, radicalization. The convoy stuff has just absolutely blown my mind in terms of organization of hate on social media, how these things have continued to perpetrate themselves over the past several years, and where Canada finds itself. And so having you here to kind of break some of that down, talk about accountability and social media is incredible, and I really appreciate you being here because you're the best at it that I've ever seen, and you have a way of explaining things that not many people have a way of wading through as well as you do. So I really appreciate it. But I want to start, I think, just on the social responsibility end. I mean, what are you seeing now in the capacity that you work in, going through a pandemic, going through the convoy, now seeing what's going on in Ukraine? What do you see that's so different on social media from its inception to where we are today?
Well, I mean, I think we've all seen that social media has evolved from this place of collaboration, community, and hope to a place where we have sophisticated bot farms and foreign actors who are trying to disrupt democracies. And I think we know, especially over the past few years, that this has become very organized. And in some ways, I hope people feel a bit of relief knowing that, in the sense that it might not be their next door neighbor that is putting up some of these Facebook groups or Facebook pages. It might be a foreign actor who, again, is trying to really disrupt our democracy. And so when you think about it from that perspective, all of a sudden you realize that the big technology companies need to be more accountable when it comes to who they allow on their platforms. And if there is interference like this, they need to be able to identify it and kick those people off those platforms. And we have seen this to some extent, but I would argue that it's often a little too late.
Mm. Yeah, you and I were talking earlier about the post-truth world online. The post-truth world, and those are big words, right? Because we don't live in a time, and I see it every day on social media, I know you do too, where someone can pass something off as something else, but the intention is to activate someone emotionally. But what is happening online today in this post-truth world?
I think there really are two different things happening. One is we see this rise of misinformation, and that includes disinformation as well. And we're seeing more and more of this misinformation being amplified online. So that's a growing problem. But we also have a second problem, and this is something that I have been writing about over the past couple of months, is this idea that what we're seeing throughout history is that feelings today in 2022, and this has been happening for the past few years, they actually trump facts. So I was looking
Mm,
at the study called The Rise and Fall of Rationality in Language. And what they saw is that in the 1980s, we started using a lot of fact related words. And eventually, as we saw the rise of the internet, more and more we started using emotional words. And that meant that there was this erosion in terms of fact based content, because all of a sudden it didn't matter if it was factual. It just
mm.
mattered that, hey, I don't like this, or I don't feel like this is true. And our feelings became in some ways more important than the facts themselves.
And that's something obviously that social media companies and organizations have algorithmically figured out, right? Like, I mean, it's almost like, and when you explain it like that, where the target isn't truth related, and I love the post world truth, post truth world. I love that little phrase because that's what we're ensconced in every day. The second we log on to Twitter, we're looking for a feeling. The second we go on to Facebook, we're looking for a feeling. But have these tech companies like identified the fact that algorithmically they can tap into our emotions on a daily basis, and is that I mean, is that the business plan? Because it certainly is. If you've seen The Social Network, which is a an amazing, or what was that the movie called? It was a documentary about those guys from Facebook, and he's like, "Don't watch." Is it The Social Network? Is that, or am
I
I thinking
believe
of
so.
something else?
Uh,
Uh,
you're you're thinking of The Social Network, I believe, is the original film
Zuckerberg movie.
about the origins of Facebook.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about recently is the documentary that was on Netflix, I believe, that was talking about algorithms
Yes.
and how algorithms are driving everything that we are seeing online. And
Social dilemma.
yeah, exactly. The more and more that we see content that makes us feel a certain way, that
Mm-hmm.
these big tech companies are serving up more of that content.
Yeah, but what is the? I mean, we're seeing the negative benefit of that, like every day. I mean, it went from when I remember at work, someone was like, "You got to get on Twitter." This is like 15 years ago. I'm like, "That's bullshit. No one goes on Twitter. No one wants to know what I'm doing." But it's legitimately the plan. It was legitimately the focus. The focus was, how do we tap into people's emotions, and you can't do it with fact. That's what you're saying, correct?
Well, I think this is more true on some platforms than others. So, for example, I think if you look at Instagram, and we know that Instagram has had a major issue over the past few years with algorithms, especially algorithms that are essentially targeting younger people. So, we know they've had plenty of issues that, if a young person is going to look for content that's all about self harm, that the platform, for some time, they've tried to improve this over the last few months and years, would actually serve them up more self harm content. And so I do think, as much as people want to blame Twitter in terms of being a toxic place, I do think that Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, they actually deserve more of the blame in many different ways.
Well, let's get to it, because Zuckerberg, I think, was going to Congress last week, and I think he's got to go again this week, and he's got to answer some questions. We've seen, the advent of disinformation and the express goal, which you touched on earlier. Like, hey, thank fucking God, it's not your neighbor who's sending you all that stuff. It's like legitimately an effort that's being curated by some people with some really shitty intentions. But when we talk about those intentions and we talk about their responsibility, what is it? Is it regulation?
I think in some ways, absolutely. Everybody hates that word regulation,
Yeah, I
especially when it
fucking
comes to
can't stand it.
you hate it. But I mean, listen, we have regulation everywhere in our
I know.
society, right? It's just it's a common thing that we run into on a daily basis. So I think in some ways, regulation would be one solution. But even more importantly, I believe that we need better leaders. And this is something I speak a lot about in my keynotes. And it's not as tangible as regulation, but I do believe we need people who want to be able to build technology and platforms in a humane way that actually makes societies better. Do we have any of those leaders? No, we are today faced with leaders such as Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. These are not the leaders that the world needs when it's in such a crisis.
What bugs you about Musk and Zuckerberg, other than the obvious?
Well, I think one of the issues you have is that, it's like the famous quote in terms of having, so much responsibility and so much power. It means that you have so much responsibility in many different ways. And I think with Elon Musk, what I see is that he's often acting in a childish way, when I would argue he could probably do so much good to be able to bring the world together. Now, people say that's not his job. He's an innovator, he's a creator, but we need those leaders, right?
Yeah.
And then if we switch over to Mark Zuckerberg, I think one of the issues that I have with him is just, I think he's oblivious to the harm that he's done in the world. I mean, I've never seen him speak where I felt as though he had any real empathy for what individuals who are faced with living in this world of misinformation are dealing with, in terms of how it's disrupting their lives and tearing apart families. If there was a delete button for Facebook, if I were in charge of it, there would be many times in the past couple of years I'd be tempted just to get rid of the whole platform.
Are you on Facebook?
I am. And I use it as a small business owner. I understand
Yeah.
the benefits. But at the end of the day, I think what we've seen is that I think his intentions perhaps were good in terms of what he wanted to build. But today, what we're seeing is it's doing more harm than good. And really, at the center of a lot of that, guys, is the fact that so much of it is automated. There's so much reliance on algorithms and automation, and not so much dependency on people. And then all of a sudden, you end up having all these problems.
Yeah.
When the whistleblower, Frances Hogan, when she leaked it out that it was the algorithm, I was on the same page as you about Zuckerberg. I thought it's something that he created that just took off, that I don't think he realized where it was going, and he just kind of rode that wave of growth with it. And the commodity of getting into somebody's psyche and making that for sale is crazy. Like, people think you're not the consumer, you're the product on Facebook. You're being sold on Facebook. So I think you're right. The original intent was never to do that, but it spun itself into that world on its own, and he's capitalizing on it. And that's what it looks
and
like.
how do you get away from it now? I mean, that's what it is. It is used expressly. There are lots of people that are like, I just keep up with my family on it. But again, you're the product, and we all know these things right now. How is it possible nothing has been done? How is it possible that they've been allowed to operate the way they have. And I go back to Egypt like a decade or so ago when all that unrest started. And it was funny because I remember watching a news outlet and Putin, and they were like, Putin is going to realize the benefit of Facebook at some point. Putin is going to realize the benefit of social media and how these algorithms work. And when he does, we're in trouble because that's how Egypt started. That's how they went through that revolution. And I have to wonder, I mean, on a world stage, if you can weaponize it so easily, Amber, um, why haven't governments stepped in to fix the problem? I'm reading in The Verge this morning how these Facebook convoy groups were literally just stolen Facebook accounts where they amalgamated names and they amalgamated disenfranchised Facebook groups into like a 2 million strong army of people who really drove hate in this country last week and the week before and the week before that. And we're going to see it in the United States this weekend. But how is it that this has been allowed to perpetuate itself and continue to move in such a negative and dangerous direction?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to the fact that no one saw this coming, and I think when you think about the growth of Facebook, I think even from the early days, I think many of us who used it believed that it could be used in a way that, again, it would bring people together. And I think the second part of that is I think most governments just don't feel as though they're in a position to be able to take on big tech. The big tech companies have a lot of money, they have deep pockets, and there's a lot of fear around even this conversation around potentially regulating some of these platforms. And then you look at the end of the day of the crisis that we're in, and we're kind of not doing anything about it. It's not like we're doing a great job of teaching the next generation about misinformation. It's not like, we're introducing any new regulations. It's not like we're bringing more awareness to this conversation. But I think what we're seeing is for sure people's lives in many ways have gotten worse.
Wouldn't this require like global involvement on regulation if that's the case? Like if that is the way they want to go? Like it couldn't just be America going, hey, stop it. And like, okay, well, we'll move our servers to Canada or we'll move our servers to wherever, Switzerland. Like, would the whole world have to get behind this, or is there ways to mitigate that?
Well, I think what we're seeing is that there are different parts of the world that are doing a better job. The EU, for example, has always been very bullish with some of the big technology companies, with everything from online advertisements to the power that some of these social networks have. So they can, in some respects, kind of limit what happens within their own borders. Would it be great if there was a coalition around the world that came together? Absolutely. I mean, Canada would be a great country to lead in terms of a coalition like that. But again, I think there's a lot of fear among people and among many leaders today in terms of not having the courage to be able to step up and do the right thing. It's almost like everybody wants everybody to like them, and that's just not possible anymore.
Well,
losing the grease, losing the greasy ads that they put out. They'll be losing their benefit they'd be shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, and listen, I mean, I go back to the statement by Seneca, 2,000 years ago, where he's like, religion is useful for some, wise people think it's ridiculous, and governments and rulers need it, right? Like, is this a case of governments and special interests that have nefarious, and we use them for like fundraising and good things too, but is this a case where, this tool is so beneficial to so many governments and so many special interest groups that it's just not going to go anywhere? I mean, the algorithms are going to be the algorithms, whether we like it or not.
I think that is an interesting story to perhaps believe in. But if you think about any experience you've had with a government website, you know that governments of all levels are just not that sophisticated. And so I just have to mention that because I think one of the issues too is that if you think about the leaders, even here in Ontario on a municipal level, provincial, and even up into the federal level, I mean, we are not necessarily an overly sophisticated digital economy. And so I think that's part of the issue as well. We kind of aren't really leading the way as some other countries are, even places like Estonia, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. We see it all the time. I mean, it's not our. This is how we are. We're conditioned, which brings me to the next thing is that we can clean up algorithms, we can regulate, but what about people's habits past the technology? I mean, we've been trained to wake up and look at our phones, trained to overreact over the past little bit, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think we absolutely have it. And that's where I think that second part of the conversation that we started with, I mean, you guys see this on a regular basis, is that all of a sudden people's feelings are more important than anything, right? And I
Mhm.
think even if that is in the face of facts. And so I think what we have is also a societal issue right now in terms of the way we treat each other. And it's often horrendous. And we've seen that over the past few weeks, we've seen it over the past few months and the
Mhm.
past few years as well. And I don't know how you fix that, right? I think it's, again, something that we've sort of allowed to happen. The genie's out of the bottle. And as I said to you, Dean, through a DM, now the internet is like, choose your own misinformation adventure. You can be and read and watch what you believe to be true.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
dude, and listen, I'll give you a wonderful example of that, Amber. This was put up by Krista Ford today. Krista doesn't think the war in Ukraine is going on because she's part of that group. And this was a tweet she put up today. If you know the government media lied to you about everything about COVID, why would you believe anything about Russia and the Ukraine? And then she posted underneath it. This is someone else's tweet that she put on her IG story. Never believe media lies. And that interested me because it's the premier's daughter, right? It's the premier of this province. And so there are a million other questions that you can ask if you want to go down that road. I don't with you today. I want to talk about the misinformation because to me, that's disinformation as misinformation, right? Like when you have people like this who you talk about leaders, she should be by virtue of the privilege that she was born into. She should be able to act as a leaderly person. She should be able to be able to figure out what the right thing to do is. And that to me and you, and we know this, is craziness, right? What we've seen in the Ukraine is very real. But there is a massive segment of people that see these videos and read the stories and go, the government's playing a trick on us. Like, how on earth are we going to get through to those people? And what is the end game for all the disinformation here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I'm thinking as you're talking, probably in late 2020, we had Margaret Atwood into our studio, and she was recording a keynote. And at the end of the keynote, we had a conversation off camera, and I was asking her a similar question. Like, what's up with these people who are, believe in all of this misinformation online, who aren't doing the right thing, who seem to have a total lack of grasp of how the world works. And she said something which is a very common quote, that many people believe that history started the day they were born. And I I will never forget that. And,
It's
you
It's
true.
know,
true.
I don't want to attack people personally, but there's a lot of people who just aren't that smart
Yeah.
and aren't intelligent enough to be able to have the tools that we've given them to create content, amplify content, create these communities. And we've made it okay for them to go out there and do just that because it's easy enough to do. And so we need the pendulum to kind of swing back where we stop believing people who are, for lack of a better word, stupid.
Internet literacy is something that they should have been teaching kids right from the day we turned the switch on. Is something about, hey, listen, because this isn't new with Facebook. This happened in the past. This happened on chat boards and those communities that they used to have. It started there, and Facebook just allowed it to fester, and
Yeah.
so I should say social media in general. But we don't have enough. I don't think we have enough literacy or awareness
Well, the
programming.
literacy and awareness it only counts if the person that's reading it and listening to it can understand it. I
Well,
mean,
I mean, in school, like when little kids are coming up and
right.
you're teaching them about the internet. Hey, here, let's
Sure.
get on the internet and we can read a story or we can watch a video. But sometimes those stories and videos aren't true, and
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing enough of that with our kids. Like I've got a daughter; she's 14. She spends her life on the internet, and she knows right from wrong just because of who she grew up with, and we've drilled in her head. Don't talk to strangers in real life or on the internet. And if you read something you think is bullshit, it's probably bullshit.
Yeah.
And she's grown up thinking her way through those things. And if she has a question, she asks.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
a
know?
lot of people are afraid to do that. Sorry, Amber, go
Yeah.
ahead. You're gonna
No,
say
no. Listen. I love listening to this conversation because I think it's so important, and I think it's really critical to remember that even though we used to be able to communicate and share insane ideas, we've all grown up and potentially had that relative at the Thanksgiving dinner table who said something that was just totally bizarre, and they, however, didn't have the tools like we do in 2022 to not only publish that but also to amplify that content. And it's the amplification
Mhm.
and that right to amplification that really causes so many issues. So I think you're bang on in terms of teaching the next generation that this is a crisis, and we need to be able to better identify misinformation and
Mm.
be able to have better literacy when it comes to the digital space. But I'm actually not worried about the next generation because I really think they are one step ahead, and I do think they are able to navigate their way through this. What I've seen, and in terms of people who have fallen victim to this, are people kind of our age.
It's
Um,
boomers. The
Mhm.
boomers broke the internet.
Hey,
I'm not
hey.
a boomer, just
Not
so you
you.
know.
I think we did
Sure.
okay.
Yeah. I'm
Not
only
that there's
49.
anything wrong with that. I just want to.
Gen X. This is all Gen X, baby. This is
this
all this
panel.
is.
This
Yeah.
panel is Gen X. The
It's all
boomers
Gen
broke
X.
it.
Sorry, you were saying, Amber. Go
But
ahead.
what we like, do you almost feel like there was a divide? Like I have friends who went down this path of, hey, the digital economy is a real thing and we got to adapt and we got to live in this world. We got to use social media. We got to be smart about it, do our research. And then there's people who are down this other path who didn't really build those skills. And now they're full grown adults and they see something on Facebook and they think it's like seeing an article in the New York Times, right? They aren't able to differentiate between something that's gone through vetting and an editorial team with something that's just been put up there by, Uncle Sam. I
Uncle
don't know.
Fester.
I'm like, I have a lot of aunts and uncles, so it's like, don't say one of their names because this is going to come back to haunt me.
Hey, have you listen, I have this in my family too, right? Where I've got like relatives, very close relatives that believe anything that someone sends them on certain accounts and in certain groups. Like I got a phone call from a family member last week. They're like, I saw this article on the Vancouver Times, and I'm like, first of all, that doesn't exist. Second of all, cross-reference all your stuff. But like this has been I don't want to say a great shortening of the family friendship bench because there's some sadness there. Like I know how I am, and I'm not overly upset that through the sluicing of the last 2 years, we've gotten to a point where I can readily identify the toxic people that were not part of the solution, that send that kind of information, that just and it sounds elitist, but and you mentioned it earlier, but it's like some of these people, it's not their own fault, a little cognitively delayed when we talk about behavior that goes past the tech and all that stuff, but it's a real, this to me is the next pandemic. It's like, man, I don't know, and I don't know about you, just on a personal level, how do you go back and fix those relationships with those people when they've opened up the kimono and showed you what they don't have? I mean, that's going to be a real problem going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a real problem, and I think for many of us, like I have a very large family. I'm from the East Coast. My mom has 51 first cousins, believe it or not. So there was a
Holy
lot.
shit! Are you guys Catholic?
She was a Catholic. I am definitely not religious, but
Yay.
yeah, her family was Catholic. But
All
we have a massive number of relatives. So I think you get to the point where for me, I always approach these things from a point of understanding and love and clarity about what's happening. But I do think there are some examples, and I've had this with friends right now, that I have had to step away from relationships with them because they seem to be too far down this rabbit hole. And I'm sure you guys have run into it as well, where it's just doing so much damage to our society. And no matter what you tell them, they don't seem to have the ability to kind of wake up and understand that, in many ways, they're being, and I know this is a term that a lot of people are talking about, useful idiots to the people who are trying to really tear us apart.
Mm-hmm. How do you talk to your kid about it? This has been one of the hardest, most rewarding experiences of my life, is trying to educate my kids about what's real out there online and what isn't. But how have you done that with Connor?
Yeah, I mean, we have regular conversations about social media. Like one of the things that I do is I ask him to send me a daily TikTok video that he likes because I'm just trying to open up those communication channels and sort of get a window into his world. And so he sends me these videos and then we talk about them. And if there's any examples of something that's untrue, then I will approach it then. So his sort of daily TikTok video to me has been a really great way to be able to kind of earn his respect because I'm interested in the world that he's keen on following, but at the same time, I can also offer those little tidbits of information along the way.
Yeah, like if you see someone with like four followers, and every picture on their account is of Donald Trump, like saving a small animal, probably a Russian troll.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are things that we know right now, right? In terms of
Yeah.
usernames, a lot of numbers, the eggheads. I got in a little bit of trouble because I said people, who only have a couple followers. And then, of course, every person in Canada who only had 2 followers yelled at me that, I was an elitist when it comes to social media and not all of
Yeah.
us can reach to this point. And I was like, oh my God, I can't say anything anymore.
No, I'm amazed at that too. Is like anytime you point something out, and I remember retweeting that and commenting on that tweet that you put out because it was a very serious time. It was right when the convoy, just prior to the convoy starting, and then right when it started.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have talked. I have been inundated with hundreds of thousands of tweets, comments. Ryan's on our socials team, threats, which are whatever. It's just part of life. But like, I noticed a similarity between all of them. All of them had very few followers. All of them had a modus operandi that had nothing to do with being online and sharing information. It was a focused, concerted effort by massive groups of people working in shifts in different areas. And I don't think people, and I, like you said earlier, I was super comforted by the fact when a couple of law enforcement officers showed up to my house to tell me about some credible threats and help me deal with some stuff in the last few weeks. They're like, you probably don't have a lot to worry about because these people are overseas.
Yeah.
But like, have you ever seen anything like that during the convoy? That effort here in Canada? I have not.
Never to this extent. I mean, this is the thing. I had exactly the same experience. Like, listen, if anyone's followed me on Twitter for a long time, I am one of the first people to kind of DM people offline and engage in reasonable conversations. And I don't mind talking to people, if they have opposing ideals. My family are, a bunch of people who are politically different in many ways. And so I think when we saw over the past few weeks so many of these bots kind of attacking, you're right. All you had to do was go to their profile and then you would see that they were doing the same thing to, dozens of other people. And this was the reason that they were on there. And I hope people who are watching this understand that there are sophisticated bot farms all around the world. Russia is a place that has been known to be home to many of them, where there are people who come to work and sit at a desk and for 12 hours a day, they just create fake accounts and they, target certain communities. They jump onto hashtags and they just try to disrupt and erode societies. So this is what we're dealing with. There are a lot of foreign actors, and we need to get a little more savvy about the realities that we are facing in terms of some of those attacks.
How's your block game now after that? How's your block game?
Okay,
Pretty good?
I don't really block that many people, to be honest with you. I mute people constantly who attack me, but I don't block them because I feel like, it's just easy enough to mute. So I'll mute a lot of people who come after me. But I don't know. I mean, I shouldn't
You're
say
not
this
very
'cause-
controversial, though.
No, you're so nice on Twitter. Like, you could be way more mean.
Well, the thing is that I don't. I don't want to say I don't care, but even if someone writes something terrible to me, like as long as it's not my mom, I'm good, right? Like this is the thing too. Throughout this process, we all have to get kind of thicker skin as well in terms of understanding this might just be a world we have to live in for a while. So no, I'm not super controversial, but it doesn't matter what you say anymore. Like I could say, hey, it snowed this morning, and to be like, well, maybe near you. Right?
They used HARP for that, HARP is controlling the snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way to go. Talking about negativity again. Way to divide the country. Way to go. Half of us hate snow.
Yeah. Exactly. And that, the thing is, I really want people to know that oftentimes too, we have these groups who are, they're weaponizing, like you said, Dean, they're weaponizing information, right, or misinformation, but they're also weaponizing words to use against us. Like, just think about the word freedom. Think about the word woke. If you look at the history of those words, there's no way that people should be able to weaponize and use them in the way that they are using them today. So I just want to remind people of that. There's a lot more happening in terms of this concentrated effort. So we need to be more aware of what's going on and not allow some of that to happen.
Same
Yeah,
with the
you know
watering
what
down.
Yeah, well, you know what it turned me into is I'm driving my son to work this morning. By the way, I was 4 hours in the car within 20 square kilometers because of the snow. That was a lot of fun.
Same with us today.
Anywho, so I'm driving my son to work, and I see a truck go by me with 2 hockey sticks with Canadian flags on them. Just 2 hockey sticks, and I became full of rage. Like, and then I had to stop and think, my God, maybe he just likes the country. Maybe he's not one of them. But the Canadian flag itself, I mean, when I see someone with it draped over their hood, I start asking questions because of the appropriation of what happened in Ottawa, and how it's changed us, how it's changed kind of all of us in those terms. And that's the appropriation of the word freedom bothers me. The appropriation of the word tyranny bothers me. Dictatorship bothers me. I mean, look what we're watching in the Ukraine. And try to tell one of those people that was in Ottawa in the hot tub over a few days protesting tyranny what tyranny is all about, because this is what it does, right? It makes people around you resentful.
Yeah, I think you're right. But, maybe for those people, again, who feel a similar way, maybe some of us are to blame in the sense that, I've always felt that people aren't speaking up enough, right? And, maybe when we started to see sort of the weaponization of the Canadian flag or, more and more people talking about they kind of own that freedom word, maybe we all as Canadians really should have put Canadian flags in our windows, right? And diffuse some of that. And I think we're going to have to start to be a little more cohesive and a little more outspoken in terms of what we believe in. And I know it's hard for people, especially if you're employed by someone, to speak up and speak your mind. But I do believe that our democracy right now depends on that. And so we need the voices who sometimes aren't heard to come to the table and to take back some of those things that we've lost over the past few weeks.
Luckily, during the bulk of this,
Well said.
During the bulk of this was the Olympics. So my way to soothe myself when I saw that somewhere in a parking lot was, they're Olympic fans. And as long as they didn't have something scrawled across their window that was spelled wrong, I was okay with it. I'm like, that's an Olympic fan. That's all that is. That's how I sold it to myself that way, because I thought the same as you, Dean. It's like, how dare you make me feel this way about my flag? I was so mad. So
there's stories
right.
like that. Yeah, stories like that all over the place with everything. It's almost like mini PTSD for 90% of the country. It's like, what is happening? Why do I hate my flag right now? I gotta love that flag. And you're right. It's going to take a bunch of us, a long time, just to live the right values for people to see that that's not cool, man. Like, what we've seen in this country has been like impossible for me to understand in certain points. Seeing hatred when you're trying to put out love. I put out a picture of this terrible, sad story, this father leaving his family in the Ukraine, family sending them off. And I put this like, hey, this is happening all over Ukraine, prayers for the country, because it was just such a moving video. And I got a series of shit posts after it from people saying, you don't know what war it's like. It's like, you almost have to, like, you say mute, I say block, but it's almost like you have to think like a Roman. You have to be able to shut everything out and stay on task, because the goal that these bots and trolls and bad actors, the goal for these guys is how do we make this country feel unsafe? How do we make the inhabitants feel like shit? And how do we make people question putting anything online? Like, that has been the whole goal. At least that's my experience. I don't know if it's been yours specifically over the past 4 days. And by the way, it didn't work. I'm still raging online, and it's a blast.
But see, but the thing is, like, are you raging in the sense that like, I'm curious, because I look at you as someone, again, who I think, you care, you're passionate, you're raging because you have a big heart, right? I know that's probably a soft way to describe you, but I will do it anyway. And
Okay.
I think that's not a bad thing, right? I do think that we all, this has been an important time for all of us to kind of come together and use our voice. And if people don't like that, you have to just accept that, you might lose some followers or some friends along the way, but we certainly can't stand kind of idle and watch all of this happen.
You know, as a point to you, and I got one more question, then we'll let you go. As a point to that, it was a concerted decision at the start of that convoy to paint it as it's supposed to be painted, and it brought a lot of grief and attacks. Right? There's attacks when you stand up, and there's attacks when you're when you say, "Hey, listen, I know this is going to come with hate. I know this is going to come with bots. I know this is going to come with threats." 1,346 last count last night. I knew that was going to be the case, but I also knew that 90% of this country needed someone to say enough, like stop. What you're doing is hurting people. And that's what I come back to. It's the genesis of how I feel. How I feel is any group or any person or any outfit or any initiative that hurts individuals, hurts human beings to prove any point has to be called. It has to be shown. You have to lay it out bare. You've got to show people. And that's the way that so many of us showed that we cared over the past 4 weeks and 2 years, is by using the privilege that we have to call something what it is, because that's why we have this privilege. There are so many people on this planet that were born without privilege, that have tried to get privilege, tried to get influence, tried to become someone in confidence so that they can be able to change the world in little ways around them. But I didn't see anybody doing that. Over 2 years, Amber, 2 years, I sat and watched people literally kick the shit out of each other on Twitter over vaccines and masks and ideologies. And I know that there was a right side and a wrong side, but for some reason, we looked at the wrong side like it was an alternative view. And because of that, it enabled so many people to be so fucking hateful that I felt like we had to do something. And I still feel like we as individuals, as human beings, have a job to do to present the truth, to show people accountability, and to be part of the greater good, because there's no better fruit, Amber, than being of good character and doing acts for the common good. There is no better fruit in this life. I have never gotten anything good out of being a selfish asshole or escalating. And that is all we've seen, in my mind.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, many of us feel that way. And I think it's also been complicated over the past few weeks, because then you also have elected officials, some of our political leaders who are sort of dancing with disinformation. I think I tweeted that out recently.
Quality group, eh? Our
Yeah,
politicians, quality group.
that complicates
Top-notch.
things to a certain extent, in the sense that there used to be a point where people wouldn't go down that rabbit hole, especially if they were representing people within their community. But all of a sudden, we've seen this breakage in many ways, and that's something that worries me immensely, because all of a sudden you have verified political leaders on social media saying ridiculous things that are untrue, and sort of toying with the emotions of people online, and that's just disgraceful.
Like Brienne from Chilliwack, we're still looking for. I can't find her. We got an APB out on Brienne from Chilliwack.
I was
find her.
I was excited this morning when that Amber alert went off. I thought it was for her.
Yeah, maybe it was Amber. No, it wasn't.
I thought it was for Brienne.
Brienne, sorry.
You guys,
Yeah.
you can't joke about those things.
I know. I'm not
like
joking
the
about it.
scolding mom on here now. You guys will be like, she's not coming back on. But
No, you'll come
kidding?
back. No, but I'm saying it's like, we've seen the Brienne for Chilliwack thing. That was perpetuated by politicians that were elected officials, and it was a total lie. I mean, the RCMP said it was a lie. To your point, that's not a quality character. That is not someone who's interested in the greater good. They're interested in a narrative, and they're interested in that narrative helping them in some capacity. So you're right. We do need better leaders. But go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And to this point, like, I did not plan to get political on social media at any point really in my life, in the sense that, not that I was afraid of it, but I really love technology. I really love innovation. These are the things that I want to talk about. And so I think this notion that all of a sudden people are getting political and getting in, in between these battles and fights that are happening online, it's not like any of us want to do that. It's just, we have this, requirement to kind of speak up and then do more to unite people. And that's how I see it. And it's unfortunate that so many people have had to, come in and play that role. But I think we're gonna have to do something in the months and years ahead, if we keep seeing this disinformation, seep into every part of our society, and people who should know better, going along with it, because, somehow they can collect, hundreds of thousands of email addresses and run for prime minister.
Yeah,
That's what scares
well
me
said.
is we're gonna have to rely on the people that we're afraid of that use it for bad intentions to be the ones that protect us from it, and that scares me. So
Yeah. Amber Mack is our guest. She is a tech guru. Do you have what do you have on your business card? Because before you came on, I'm like, how do I describe Amber other than the gold standard when it comes to tech and communication in the digital space? Because that's a long thing to put on a business card.
It is. I don't really have a business card per
Awesome.
se, but I do believe that to succeed in 2022 and beyond, everybody needs range. And so that means that maybe business cards will be obsolete because we've all got to be able to do a bunch of different things. And if I had to pick one title, I would probably say tech expert. It's kind of at the core of everything I do, whether it's speaking, writing, radio, whatever that might be.
Yeah, tech guru. So I wasn't far off. So I'll just move
Not too
guru
bad.
over and move expert in, which is good. And last thing I want to say, hell of a commitment to cut your hair. It looks awesome, by the way. Not a lot of people can go long to short like that, but it's an incredible look. You look incredible.
Oh, they're very sweet. Yeah, I don't know. I'm one of those people who I have a very short-term memory in the sense of I'm always kind of looking forward. And so I went to see my hairdresser after many years, and I was like, do something different. She's like, maybe we should cut it, and then she cut it, and it was over. And it's definitely a little bit
Stress
easier
you out though? Does it stress you out?
Not really. I mean, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about, and I know we're supposed to wrap up, but is that I worry a little bit. I mean, I know I'm talking to two guys on the show, but I worry a little bit about women's voices not necessarily being represented or heard in a significant way. And I go on Instagram and I feel like, it's a world there where, it's pretty and there's a lot of, nice pictures and we're sort of not part of these conversations that are sort of shaping our world. And I know you're going to be like, what does this have to do with getting your hair cut? But part of it was just I don't want to play that game anymore. I don't want to spend an hour getting ready in the morning. I want to read books and I want to listen to podcasts and I want to learn. And I'm not going to spend an hour, looking pretty for someone. So chopped off the hair.
I feel the exact same way.
I feel attacked because this is 2 days in a row that we've talked about hairstyles.
Well, and you don't
bald
have
guy.
any. Yeah.
And
We
I don't
have
have
the
any.
luxury of being able to cut our
attacked.
hair anytime we want and know it's going to grow back. You don't.
Well, I
bought a
was
pair of
not going
clippers
to.
in
Just to
2006,
be clear,
and that
I was
it.
not going to go there.
You weren't? Oh, we do it with everybody here, especially there's some days where we've got 5 guys on the show and 4 are bald.
Yeah.
So I rock this and I don't care. I rub it in too, even though it's Arctic
does.
blonde.
But that's
I
good.
having hair.
It's okay. That's okay, right? This is the thing. It's we have really big issues to tackle in the world, and let's do it with our hearts and our minds, and we don't have to worry about some of this other stuff.
You're right.
Like hair loss?
Well, I'm sure there's something that can help you with that.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
No, these guys are all okay with it. I'm jealous because I'd like to just shave my head and get it over with too. But Amber, listen, didn't have you here to talk about that. I just wanted to thank you very, very much for coming. You're one of the strongest people online. You're one of the strongest, most character-filled individuals I've ever had a chance to talk to. You and I have had a couple of chats offline, but listen, you're a real leader and a leader in the community, a leader in this city, a leader in this country. And just the way that you control and handle yourself on a daily basis, the ins and outs and the professionalism that you treat everything with and the kindness that you treat people with. It's a great pleasure to always talk to you. And it of course it is today, but can't tell you enough how important you are in the discourse. In watching you over the past several years, specifically over the past couple of years, in how you treat people, how you talk to people, how you act, and you lead by example. And you're very motivational for people like myself. So thank you.
Well, listen, thank you guys. And you guys are doing a phenomenal job out there. And I know it's not easy. And I'm watching all the stuff you put out there. And listen, thank you for that as well. And thank you for having me on the show.
Anytime. We'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
Amber.
Amber Mack, at Amber Mack on Twitter is where you can find her. How can people email you and see your work? Where can they go?
Super easy, ambermac.com. And, lots over there in terms of my newsletter, my podcast, the feed, and Twitter. I'm pretty much always online, as you guys know.
Yes. By the way, did you see Stuart with Ryan Reynolds the other day online?
I did. And I am super jealous. I love Brittlestar, and I really love Ryan Reynolds. And those are two kind of iconic Canadians for very different reasons. So it's like a Reynolds love fest. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of Reynolds in one picture, but
Yeah.
great to see you. Thanks for doing this, Amber. We'll talk to you
Thanks,
soon.
guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
Amber Mack from Amber Mack Media. She is awesome.
I love her. Everything she posts. You know how you see people that have links? They post a link to something, and you're like, yeah, I'm not. Everything she ever posts, I always click on it, even if it's like, oh, the banking system is changing. It's like if she's tweeting it, it's going to be good. So
Yeah, dude, she does like a couple podcasts for like mining companies. I'm like, I'll watch it.
I spoke on a Twitter space about the mining, the neutrino mine up in Sudbury once. She was on, and I actually went because I used to work indirectly with them.
Yeah.
And I actually got to speak on one of her spaces because of it. It was kind of cool.
Yeah,
Felt like
she's
an idiot
awesome.
because she's way too smart.
You know what she does really well is, and I was saying it as I was fawning over her excellence at the end of the program. But you know what she does better than anybody else? Her words carry a lot of weight because how she conducts herself.
Agreed.
Not only is she a tech expert and one of the greatest tech experts in this country, maybe ever, maybe in North America, maybe in one of the biggest in the world.
Amazing
she's
communicator.
An incredible human being.
Yep.
I called her a couple of nights, or I sent her a text. I'm like, hey, this, and this. She's like, you know what? Let me call you back because I'm teaching my son how to snowboard while I'm writing a keynote address.
And cooking dinner.
Seriously. No, I don't think she was cooking. I think she was she was at the ski hill.
Wow.
Teaching her son. So this human being is not only a workhorse and the best in the world in her space. She's also like a fantastic individual as well. So that's why it's like when people model that kind of behavior, they become like mentors to me. Like I watch this person on a daily basis and I'm like, there's a person you want to model your behavior after.
Oh, for
that
sure.
Professionalism, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where she gets some of that resentment that we touched on in there, where people will just argue with her for no reason. And I think it's a threat. People get threatened by people that are a little more
successful,
successful,
smart.
smarter.
Yeah,
and it's not to be used as a threat. You should look at that as a gift. Like she's literally giving you this information that she has, and she's just giving it away. And people just take that as a threat, I guess.
Oh, hey, Rook.
Hi, guys. What's up? I'm going on the bottom here.
Holy shit.
They do take it as a threat.
Going on the bottom.
A lot of people take it as a threat. Speaking of, can you send Caryma the? I've got a surprise for you guys. I don't want anybody to talk about it. Can you send Caryma the link real quick in our DMs?
Yeah.
Nice.
She's agreed to pop on with us. We have some news. I don't want to talk about the news
that's
before
fine.
we get to the news,
I think
but
we
it's
all
one
know
of those.
what it is.
Well, it's one of those Friday things where it's like
Feel Good Friday.
Friday, I could use some good news on a Friday.
Yeah, Feel Good Friday.
Tough. Just get out of the convoy bullshit. Got a war going on in Ukraine. See some sadness over there. And then you also see some great stories. Like, while we get Caryma on, have you heard about the Ghost of Kyiv?
Yeah, baby.
Have you heard about this, dude?
I haven't. No.
You haven't heard about the Ghost of
I've
Kyiv?
been in and out all day today.
Let me play a video. This is the Ghost of Kyiv. Watch this. Well, I know that was a quick one.
Right.
That guy in that airplane. Mm-hmm. He's a Ukrainian fighter pilot. Now, do you want his kill count in a few days? This guy's like the yellow
General
and blue
Patton.
Baron. Yeah, he's the yellow and blue Baron.
Should have wore your Snoopy shirt.
It's what he is. He's the yellow and blue Baron.
Okay.
This dude has shot down, as of today, the count is 7 airplanes on his own.
Holy shit.
What kind of airplanes? This is the truth. Ukrainian Fulcrum pilot who's already chalked off 6 air-to-air kills today against Russian forces.
Today.
Yeah, dude, he's taking out Russia by himself.
He hasn't even had lunch.
He took out 2 Su-35s, 1 Su-27, 1 MiG-29, 2 Su-25s, and he also took out some surface-to-air stuff that belonged to Russians today before parking it for the afternoon. This guy is like a rallying cry for all Ukrainians right now because they're like, every time he goes by, or when a plane goes over and it's like a Ukrainian plane, everybody starts cheering on top of the fucking buildings that they're on because of the Ghost of Kyiv. They're fighting the monster. It's like the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe you haven't heard of the Ghost of Kyiv.
No, you know what? I saw I saw a video today that referred to him. Now that I've seen it, where it looked like his plane actually disappeared when he went into something. Like there was a flash. And right? He just cloaked himself, and it was wicked.
Yeah, this guy's running around killing people, and everybody's like amazed, and no one wants to talk about who he is because he's killed so many Russians and he shot down so much of their shit. They're like, don't tell him. Don't say it's Peter.
Yeah,
don't say it's him. Don't tell anyone it's Peter.
That's right. They might go and kill his asshole brother.
Yeah.
Did you let me ask you a question while we're waiting for Caryma then, because like you mentioned it there. We jumped out of the pan and into the fire into this. How are you feeling about it? Like emotionally, like just the emotions of the last week from the switch.
I think what happens is, well, first of all, I appreciate this country cleaning its shit up and getting rid of those fucking pricks. I really do. Mm-hmm. It's like things are back to normal. I feel good. They didn't inconvenience me. All the Russian trolls are gone. All the bot farms are gone because they're focusing on sewering people in Ukraine and Russia. Like the cyber warfare there is like out of this world right now.
What Anonymous is kicking their ass though.
Yeah,
they're
Anonymous.
Everything.
My friends, Anonymous.
Yeah,
they I know them.
They followed all of us. I think.
Oh yeah,
so,
they follow all of us. So Anonymous is like, hey, we're gonna take these guys out, and I'm like, how can I help? They're like, just watch. You don't have to do anything. What are you going to do? And then I noticed the Kremlin website is still offline.
RT.
I started laughing. RT offline.
Yeah.
What else did they do? Who else did they bang over the past couple of days too?
There was the banks. There was a bank that they took out that was leading up to the actual invasion, and that was more of a warning shot across the bow, saying, "Listen, you think we can't take your banks out? Watch this!" And they literally did it live, like, pew, like, we'll keep going.
Yeah. Next up,
I love them.
Oh, dude, these guys are fucking. I don't know where they are or who they are. I'm just glad they like us.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the right side.
I'm glad they send us the odd hat tip DM and the odd little like. I'm like, oh, so we're on the right track because these guys actually know what's going on. Nobody else does.
Yeah, I had a dance with them a while back when the God Hates Fags church that Christian,
Westboro Baptist Church.
Baptist. Yep. When they were taking them out and doxing all their members that were showing up at the soldier funerals and stuff, there was a local connection, and I ended up talking with one of them. Very, very, the way you actually communicate outside of DMs on Twitter is crazy with them.
Oh, dude!
And I mad respect as shady and shitty as it can be.
They scare the shit out of me.
They do it for the right reason. You know what I mean? It's like the white knights.
Totally illegal what they do, but it's like everything they do. I'm like, yeah, fuck, I guess so. You probably should have done that.
Yeah,
right?
Somebody should have.
Everyone they DDoS or dox, even though it's wrong to do and illegal and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's like they just want to make sure that they can take the cover and rip it off and show everybody so that we all know everybody's intentions, which is why I love them. Speaking of intentions and speaking of good news. Caryma Saad joins us again, ladies and gentlemen.
My favorite Twitter of the day.
Hi.
Saw you on Fifth Estate, by the way. Rocking the Fifth Estate.
Thank you.
Looking good. What did you think of your feature? I thought you were great.
I appreciate that. I was pleased. They picked one quote where I forgot my words. So fuck, right? But it's
That's what you
can't say that on the Fifth Estate.
apparently you can, because they had Jeremy McKenzie cussing all over the place. Had I known that, I would have conducted myself differently.
Yeah, but he's a terrorist. You don't want to do the same thing a terrorist does.
You don't
go, well, that terrorist is allowed to swear, so I guess I can too because I'm not a terrorist. You don't want to do what the terrorists do.
Enough of your logic this morning.
Yeah. How are you? Nice to see you. Loved your live tweeting of the Pat King bail hearing, which is why you're here. I didn't want to say anything to anybody until Caryma could come on. But would you be able to give people some interesting news to go into their weekend with, if you can? That would be lovely. Can you tell us what happened in Pat King's bail hearing today?
Well, Pat King was denied bail. So that is kind of that's the long and short of it. The reasons he was denied bail, twofold. First, the court found that there was a substantial likelihood that he would reoffend, and they weren't persuaded that the plan proposed would be enough to mitigate that risk. And specifically, the surety in question had known him for 4 weeks. They met in the context of the convoy. Her name shows up on the Freedom Convoy token page as some type of organizer. She claims to not understand crypto, which the court found meant one of two things. Either she was lying and is actually deeply entrenched in this movement, or she's easily manipulated. And because the plan involved all of this sort of input from the surety, put all of the onus on her, she was the one who stood to lose her house. She was the one who would have been paying for an ankle bracelet. Pat really had no skin in the game. And having gone through some of the footage, I read between the lines of what the JP was saying, and sounds like he didn't, think that Pat would be deterred from losing this woman her house and her livelihood, because what was the emotional investment or connection between them, right? It seemed very one-sided. So that was one reason he was denied bail. Apart from that, in considering sort of the public and the administration of justice, our confidence in the administration of justice, the seriousness of the offense, the strength of the Crown's case, the fact that he, could stand to serve substantial time in prison, all of those factors mitigated towards keeping him detained in order to maintain people's faith in the system. So that was the outcome.
Yeah. That was, by the way, a great outcome for us, by the way. But I want to get to the weeds of it in just a second, but I do want to know, at any point did you see Pat King in the hearing, and what was his reaction to having bail denied, and his lawyer, Cal Roseman?
So I was physically there, like a few feet away from Pat.
You were in court?
Yeah, I went to the courthouse.
Oh, you're in Ottawa right now?
Yeah.
Fuck, I love you so much.
Yeah, she was live. She was actually there.
That is unbelievable.
I said I wanted an update if Pat King actually caught eyes with her at some point.
We did
and realized,
at the end.
Oh, did you?
At the very end. I was the last person he looked at leaving the courtroom. If looks could kill, I would not be sitting here.
Okay. So start at the beginning, because this is the part of the story that I really wanted to get from you, because I didn't even know you were there. So you get to court. How was it? How was his reaction? Talk to him. How was his response? Tell me about his pain.
Sure. Well, so I watched the hearing on Tuesday, and that was virtual, and you could see Pat in the prisoner's box. So there is a camera that's focused on him, and his demeanor was one of someone who is agitated, and uncomfortable. They're not comfortable seats. He's a big guy, so I took that to be sort of a lot of the squirming. He was pretty wanting to interject at certain points on Tuesday and kept getting dressed down by his lawyer. And being in the physical courtroom, I would say my observations kind of held. There was no JP or the Crown or his lawyer in the courtroom. So really it was him, court staff, and then a few of us who were in the body of the court. At one point he rearranged his ponytail. He looked like he needed a smoke, probably. He got when at one point it became clear from the judge's sort of reasoning what the outcome was going to be, if you're listening, right? So maybe it wasn't clear to him, it was clear to me. And he was just staring like straight ahead. And then there were points where he was vigorously shaking his head. Part of that was when the JP was reading out verbatim things that Pat has said on live stream. So that was interesting.
Like what? Yeah. Like what were? Because listen, when you're between when you're in the sights of the barrel, and someone's like, now let's read out verbatim what you said. What was that like?
Something about Justin Trudeau and bullets, and that's the only way this can end. Hold the line, stand your ground. We're going to regroup. Let's meet outside at this location, and we're not backing down. We're just going to regroup and go back to it. So all of that, I think, painted a portrait of someone who is incorrigible, or certainly not controllable by the proposed surety. So, it was, I say jarring because it's not often that you get to hear sort of the justice swearing in court, but Pat swears a fair bit. So lots of fucks were dropped. And so during that, I think,
By the way, you said that word like you never say it. You and I talk enough to know you should be comfortable saying that word.
It's fine. It's even weird thinking of it in the context of like, actually, one of my first decisions, I got to say fuck several times, and it was great.
Oh, nice.
It was great.
Would be freeing, I guess.
You're the best. I said fuck several times. It was great.
On the record.
So the judge is reading out these awful statements out loud, verbatim to Pat. He's shaking his head vigorously.
He's basically like, no, that's not violence. I'm not implying violence. At one point, his lawyer, I don't remember if it was this appearance or on Tuesday, but kind of portrayed Pat as like a political scientist of sorts, and he was just theorizing about what could happen, and violence is a possible outcome, and he's not encouraging it because he says all the time, don't use violence, which is actually something that the justices of the peace acknowledged, that Pat didn't specifically call for violence. He called for the opposite, to be peaceful, etc., but that the offense he was considering was mischief. And he went into great detail about the mischief and how it affected residents, how it affected vulnerable people in Ottawa, and how it extended beyond the city, and really caused damage, I think, to the national psyche. I guess other little tidbits about Pat. At one point, he asked the bailiff for the time, which I thought was, just not to make fun of that, but it was just kind of it sat with me. I don't know. He drank.
I saw you tweeted about it, and it shocked me too for some reason that he would ask for the time, because two things. My joke brain was like, that's because he doesn't have a phone anymore, right? And then my human brain was like, this guy's coming out of like a 20-year fog, like. What time is it? Like, that's
for sure. It was humanizing in a way. I don't know. I'm still reflecting on that. His mask was down, I would say, for the majority of the time. Because he was drinking water and then just would forget to put it back up or whatever. And what else?
Yeah, didn't the JP give him shit for that too? The
Crown sort of tattled on him at one point, being like, I noticed that Mr. King, his mask is not on properly, and for the court staff, we need to have his mask on. And the JP was like, well, okay, I'm looking at the cases. I wasn't paying attention to him, but Mr. King, please put your mask on.
I love that you even tweeted that today. I was like, she's going for it today. This is how Caryma gets back at people for treating her like shit. She reports every fact.
7 milliliters of sweat came from the top of his brow when the verdict was read.
Okay, so take us to. Sorry, I'm laughing, but take us because it's sad. I guess supposed to be. Take us to the decision and Pat's reaction, leading to you and him locking eyes at the end. You being the last person he sees as a free man.
Well, technically, at that point, he was no longer free. But
You're
yeah,
deadly
he was,
today. You're
he was
deadly
not
today.
pleased. He was not pleased with the decision. And as he was leaving, he got up and then I think turned back to collect his water bottle or something. And then that, is the first time that I could tell for sure he recognized me, because I obviously was watching the back of his head for some time. I thought about where I would position myself in the courtroom. And so I was the first person there. And there were sort of two seats that I was considering. One was the farthest from the prisoner's box, but I would have been in his line of sight the entire time. And then the other one was closest to the prisoner's box, but I would have been behind him. So I opted for option B, just because, I don't know.
Well, let's hang on. Let's just quickly stop down for 1 second. You opted for option B because you are an agitator and you wanted him to know you were there.
No, sorry.
No,
Which one was option B? I did the one that was closer to him, but behind him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You wanted to know. You wanted him to know you were right behind him. Please tell me
he didn't.
true.
I don't know that he fully knew, because there was a bailiff.
Fulfill Dean's fantasy and
I.
say he was staring at you the whole time.
Yeah,
please.
I'm just trying to increase your badassery by a couple of levels.
No, it was badass because I was the last person he saw when he left the courtroom.
And when the judge says bail denied, what did he do?
It was a slump and a sigh, and I think that's pretty and this. Again, from the way the decision was going, and I'm going to try to obtain a copy of it in writing. Before the justice actually said, bail denied, he didn't use those words, but before he came out and said it, it was pretty clear where it was going. So he might have caught on sooner. I don't know. But it's it's heavy, and we're joking about it, but it's heavy to realize that you're going to be in custody until your trial, or until you plead guilty, whichever comes first. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of people, it's the guilty plea because it takes a while to get to trial, and this is going to be a complicated trial because there's multiple co-accused, and there's a lot that the Crown is going to try to establish. So, it sunk in at some point for him. Kind of at the end, it seemed that he was gesturing towards the camera, and this is the other thing. For his people, he is now a martyr to the cause of sort of political freedom of speech. I don't know. And now he's going to have access to a bunch of criminals. So is this the best outcome? I don't know. But obviously the court found that in the interest of public safety, there was more of a risk letting him go than not. So that's, it's open to Pat and his lawyer to seek a bail review. So to try and change the outcome, maybe have a different plan of attack. And I'm aware that Tamara Litch is doing that. So she has a bail review scheduled for Wednesday, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I listen, and you're a much better person than either of us, for sure. Me, maybe not Ryan. Maybe you guys are both similarly nice. But you bring up a good point. I mean, everybody puts themselves in another person's position. It doesn't matter what Pat King did before this and whether or not you think he deserves to go to jail. You first person that, put yourself in his shoes. You first person that. Can you imagine sitting there hoping you're going to get out of jail? You haven't had a smoke in a week and a half. And you're literally realizing how fucked you are. You go one of two ways, right? And everybody does in these situations where everything's taken away from you, and you can either choose to get better or you choose not to. You can either choose to let it define you and be full of resentment, or you can choose to use it to define a better life. But if you first person that, I don't know what that feeling's like. You've seen it probably multiple times being a lawyer, but seeing that today has to be heavy. I mean, that's a great word that you used. Super heavy.
It is. And, he's done some really despicable things. So that's not to take away from it. But bail isn't meant to be punitive. Bail is about risk assessment and public safety. And wherever someone can be released, they should be released. And the JP laid all of that out right at the beginning of his decision. So I think that it was, that was taken into account. I don't think that there was a departure from these principles. But kind of hearing or seeing some of the discourse play out online, I think it's worthwhile to remember that reasonable bail, presumption of innocence, right to a fair trial, those are all constitutional protections that, they're so vital and so crucial. And even though these, so-called freedom fighters do all these deplorable things, it's unpopular people who need these protections the most. And our criminal justice system falls short in that regard a lot of times, because there are many vulnerable people who find themselves in jail, in custody, detained, and probably, would be better off not being in that position. So this isn't a pat pity party.
No, you're
He
looking at
obviously
it
made
like
his bed and is lying in it,
Yeah.
but I
there's
guess
a human
an opportunity.
perspective. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Justice-
human perspective. No matter who the person is, if you put yourself in those positions, you can kind of get that feeling, right? And I think that feeling is what a lot of people, all of us, try to avoid in life by paying attention to responsibilities in society, right? Like being a responsible individual. What you're seeing is, the unmasking of responsible people. So let me ask you this: do you think they got a fair trial? Do you think it was a fair process? And do you think they should have made bail?
Well, I mean, their trial hasn't happened yet, so we'll see sort of where that comes. I think the evidence for both Tamara and Pat really worked against them. So Tamara and her husband just straight up lied to the court, were evasive, didn't have a real plan in place, and that contributed to their detention, to her detention rather. And Pat, as I mentioned, the surety is the one who was taking the entire risk. And Pat came across as sort of a sociopath and someone who wouldn't necessarily care about the stranger who, is putting everything on the line for him. And so what kind of, how does the court then allow him to just go out? That was sort of the reasoning there. I think both would have been releasable in different circumstances. So with a solid plan and a surety who there's a mutual connection and not sort of a parasocial one. That I think might have changed the outcome. Ordinarily, you would expect, especially for Tamara, who has no criminal record, like that's a very high bar. It's someone who has lived, however, like 40 years, 50 years. I can't tell how old she is.
49.
Yeah,
Okay.
almost 50.
You're welcome.
I'm not going to go further on that line. Someone
Self-editing. I like that. Yeah. Well, someone
You
who
are
learns
better than
about,
both
I
of us.
said this in a tweet the other day. I'm like, imagine learning about consequences in your 50s or 40s. Like, imagine learning that there are natural consequences for your behavior, whether or not you think it legally requires the treatment that you get. But imagine that. Like, imagine sitting, and I think about this. I try to teach my kids this on a daily basis, that you have a responsibility to yourself, and that there's a tax to pay for everything you do. And you talk about the self-incriminating stuff that we saw, like hours and hours and hours of videos of bullets flying and we're not leaving and hold the line and fuck the police and all that other stuff. I mean, if do you think they learned to not, broadcast their crimes?
So much of the evidence that was used against Pat, he didn't testify at his own bail hearing. In
Would have been over a
contrast
lot
to Tamara
sooner.
Litch, right?
Yeah.
Which, no negative inference can be drawn from that. You're not required to testify, but obviously there was nothing to contradict the videos that he's published of himself saying and doing offensive things and, appearing to commit the crime of counseling mischief. So, don't broadcast your crimes.
Thank you for that.
There's the takeaway.
Somehow I knew that. Even if I wasn't going to commit a crime I was like, if I do commit a crime, don't tell anybody, don't show anybody, don't record the crime.
Keep that on the DL,
Don't
like
go
real
on
G's
Facebook
move in
Live.
silence. Like
Yeah,
hold
but
on.
do they even have the following they have if they didn't thumb their nose at every responsibility known to man over the past little while and broadcast it? Like, I mean, that blows my mind. And it goes to something that Amber said in the podcast prior, where she questioned the brain power of a lot of these different people. Like, I watched Tamara Lish on the stand. I call her Tammy. I watched Tammy on the stand, or listened to read the tweets, and I heard, and it wasn't like, it was almost like she was not just not prepared. She didn't even understand what was happening. That was the feeling that I got, that she had no concept of how serious this was, or how to even answer a basic question.
Pat looks like
She's laughing.
Pat
No,
looks like a
I'm
biker
laughing at
from.
this comment here where someone's like, I like the video he made of himself. I'm not a good person. Like, that's funny. Yeah, no, I don't think the gravity of the situation was sort of impressed upon that, or I shouldn't say impressed upon that. I don't think it's sunk in time. And in a way we can, like, not to blame Chris Sky, but he really, I think, or his multiple releases gave people this false sense of security where, yeah, I can go cause a riot at the Eaton Center. Yeah, I can go do this, do that, and I'm going to get slapped on the wrist, and then my surety can be some jackass I picked up along the way on my convoy who I barely know, and it's fine. And it's not fine. I don't know what anomaly is Chris Sky. I don't know. But it's not fine. And
yeah, he kept getting out, and he had the same lawyer, though. Like, he had the same lawyer, Cal Rosemond, the guy that was representing Pat King.
Yep.
And I know that when you were live tweeting the previous bail hearing that no decision was made, you had pointed out that, like, oh my God, somehow Chris Sky keeps getting out. There might be an opportunity here for Pat.
Yeah, I think, but this was at a different level, right? As much notoriety as Chris Sky had, it wasn't national news.
Yeah, he wasn't blocking borders. He didn't have an entire downtown metropolis locked up. Like, it's this. He didn't have that wherewithal to organize that. So I think you're right. I think the severity of the Crown's case against Pat King compared to Chris Sky is, you see that difference. Why the surety? Who gives a shit? Okay, fine.
Yeah, how did Chris keep getting out then? Like, that's how is
Part
he
of it, I think,
out?
was Crown consenting, which I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. That's going to be a mystery to me. That's going to be he chewed his face. Stop. That's horrible.
Chris Sky chewed his way out. You don't like that one?
That's great.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. What kind of jail, if it is, because everybody's going to ask us this, right? I'm already getting comments and DMs from people like, can you ask Caryma how much time if he gets convicted on all counts? Like, what kind of sentence we're looking at for a guy like Pat King?
So very different perspectives from the Crown and defense on that throughout the bail hearing. It sounds like the Crown would be seeking a consecutive sentence for the various offenses, which means one after the other, rather than concurrent sentences, which is you're charged with 3 things, it's 2 years attached to each thing, but we're going to sort of combine it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the Crown was seeking concurrent sentences. I want to say 4 years came up, but I don't actually remember the number. The defense thought that it would be closer to 4 or 5 days. So huge discrepancy there. And assuming this goes all the way to trial, every day that Pat King spends in custody before then counts as a day and a half. So when, if he's found guilty and a sentence is like put out, it will subtract however much time he has spent in custody so far, to the tune of like a day and a half to each actual day. And if he's acquitted, then that's it. And that's why bail is so important, because if he's acquitted, like there's no compensation for the time that you have been in jail. Like it's just good for you, you're free now, but like fucks your life up, right? So that's why bail is so important.
Sorry, I thought you just said Pat King fucked his life up. Must be hearing things. That's what I go back to every time. I mean, like the loss here for so many people, not just the loss of freedoms, but the loss of reputation, the loss of earning potential, the loss of everything. I mean, if you're one of those people out there watching this podcast that had sympathy for these guys and thought this was the way to act, this was the way to do things, watch what happens. Listen to what Caryma's talking about with this guy just sitting there shaking his head, literally in lockup for the last week, and they took everything away from him because he was a dick. He just acted like an asshole all the time. And it's not, this is the tax, right? Like, it doesn't matter how severe you think it is and whether or not it was warranted. There is a legitimate tax to pay for every decision that you make when you're out in public. And by the way, your dog snoring is the cutest.
I love it.
The cutest.
Every time. I love that dog.
Every time I'm on a Zoom, it's crazy.
Yeah, he feels comfortable. I thought Ryan was farting. I wasn't sure what was happening until I realized I'd heard it before. Anyway, that's my point, is that, like, listening to you kind of go over the list of issues that he's got, all I can see in the big picture of things is this is what you get. This is what you get when you act like a tool. This is what you get when you go on a tangent because you won't listen to anybody and you're off in some other reality that nobody else shares with you. I mean, that's what we're seeing. The reality that these people thought existed did not, yet they operated like it did. That's why they made their own police force or peace force or whatever it was.
Do you think it was the celebrity that they had within
Totally.
their little group of
100%.
that just kept empowering them and fueling it? And
100%.
Like, if I just can't get over how much it fueled the delusion that this was okay. Like, that's what that echo chamber is so dangerous.
I don't get it, but it's intoxicating, right? To have people engaging with your content in a positive way. And you get likes and positive comments, and yes, you're doing the right thing, keep going. And it is an echo chamber, Ryan. So, like, at some point, I think, of course, you sort of separate from reality, and that is your new reality, and it warps your worldview and sort of it normalizes all of these thoughts and behaviors that are not normal. Yeah. So I think that that's what happened. What I don't want to see, though, is, and without detracting from the personal accountability of the people who helped organize this and who helped dupe others into participating, this wouldn't have happened without the state allowing it to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think focusing on these guys as sort of the individuals behind the convoy who are responsible for it all is only part of the picture. So I'm going to keep yelling about Doug Ford's lack of involvement, the way that police responded to the situation, like that all has to stay at the forefront.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be inquiries for months and months about this. Just the response alone on both sides. Like, people are going to say it was too harsh. And then there's going to be people like us that went, where the fuck were you guys? Yep. And why did you let it get to this point? And why did we have to invoke an Emergencies Act to clean it up? Why didn't the police just do their job? And
yeah. Emergencies Act lasted 10
9
days.
Yeah.
9 days. Yeah, 9 tyrannical days. And I remember when they lifted the actual Emergency Act, Caryma, it was tyrannical. I was out for dinner at a nice restaurant near me. Bless you.
Thank you.
I just filled up my car with gas, got a real sharp haircut, feel real sharp today.
Are you okay?
Also, yeah, I'm going to make it. Also hit the bulk barn on the way home to grab some beer nuts. So I'm glad it's over, because it was the worst.
Rations.
I miss Bulk Barn when you could just, eat samples. I miss that.
Oh, you can't do that anymore?
Well, I suppose you could, but now you really have to go get like an attendant, right? Otherwise,
No, dude, I was at the bulk barn. I had my entire fist in the banana chips. Just sunk it right in there, and then I grabbed what I wanted and put it in the bag. And I took a couple of little banana chip samples out, and then I went over to the beer nuts. But I didn't put my hand in the beer nuts. I just put my scooper in. See, Rob's like, you still can.
Oh yeah,
You can
this
still.
Is one more piece of evidence.
You can have a whole meal at Bulk Barn if you want.
One more piece of evidence why Caryma is a better person than both of us, right here. See,
hey,
she didn't know.
South Stands TFC in the comment section says the Bulk Barn make your own peanut butter is delicious. I didn't even know you could do that. Not at my Bulk Barn, you couldn't do it, but I really enjoy. Anyway, my point was this: is that it's over. Like all of these things are a bunch of shit. Like this is all we've seen is just muddying the waters. People trying to throw their shit in the way. People trying to tell you what's happening. But if we didn't have that Emergency Act, we couldn't have had the financial crimes uncovered. People would still be driving around in vehicles trying to fucking make people feel like shit, trying to block stuff. Like I can't remember what the number was, but was it something like 27 trucking companies have had their licenses revoked, business licenses revoked? That is why we needed the Emergency Act. Am I not correct? And if I'm not understanding this correctly, Doug Ford's Emergency Act was sufficient for the force that we needed to use to clear Ottawa, correct?
it should have been. I think so. I mean, I'm a little bit out of my depth in that I haven't closely studied the Emergencies Act. So, I've looked at it in maybe the same way as other people and have the benefit of legal training. But I don't know for sure whether it was actually required. And I'm always apprehensive about the state taking extra powers. And that's, it was obviously revoked. So I think that kind of some of the concerns were probably misplaced about that. But bottom line for me, it comes back to we had to use intense law enforcement to clear a situation that other law enforcement ushered into existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just the what do you call them again? The inquiries, because I think there's a mandatory inquiry 60 days after this ended, right? So in the next 2 months, we'll see the inquiry. So we're gonna fight, which is what I'm really looking forward to. The court stuff is kind of it's fun when you see assholes go to jail. The Schadenfreude involved is a lot of fun for me. Maybe not for you because you're a feeling person, but I enjoy that part of it. And but the inquiry is we're gonna find out the depth of the thing. We're gonna find out way more during an inquiry when they're assuming that they're honest about the inquiry, assuming that no one's gonna hide anything. We're gonna find out some stuff that probably will shock most people, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we know about what happened is probably a little deeper than most that are just watching it on television. And it was the most concerning time in my 49 years in this country, 48 because I came when I was 1. But it concerned me because I saw things that weren't right. They were out and out lies, and the rage and the hatred and the hurt that was caused by those lies really bothered me. I felt like we had an opportunity here to stand up for Canadians and stand up for people for the right thing, which is what we did. But that invited a whole bunch of other shit too. But I cannot wait for the inquiry because what we'll get out of that is justification or no justification, depending on what the inquiry says and what we know, right?
Yeah.
That dog is so tired.
Just doing it.
And I'm
just
too
giving
far
her.
just kind of rattle. But anyway, it's fine.
Anyway, listen, we'll let you go. But great job today. Caryma saw it in Ottawa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At Caryma Rules. Go and check out her entire live tweeting. Were you allowed to tweet from the courtroom, by the way?
I was tweeting from the courtroom.
Yeah, I know. Were you allowed to do that? Or?
I think so. Yeah. I'm not allowed to broadcast, right?
Yeah,
so,
you can live
and that
tweet.
was another thing, actually. So there were people who were live streaming the bail hearing as it was happening, even though you're not supposed to do that. Detective Benson was sitting behind me. He's with Ottawa Police and was trying to sort of rectify that, get a court order to get Facebook to take it down. So that was happening in the background. It was not me who was live streaming, just to be
Smart.
clear.
Way to go.
And yeah, actually, and I'm going to plug something.
Yeah, please.
So there's a professor out in Alberta, Peter Sankoff, and we've launched a Kickstarter to put together a book on convoy law and tackling some of the legal myths and misunderstandings that form the basis of what these people have done. It's meant for a lay audience. So for, it's not a book for lawyers.
For me, it's okay. You can say it's for me.
Yeah, do you want me to translate lay audience for everybody? It's meant for people who don't have law degrees. That's a nice way to say it, but it's for dummies like us.
Yeah. I can't wait.
You said it, not me. It's not going to get off the ground if we don't fund the Kickstarter. So go check that out on my page. And if you're interested, I'm going to try to write a book.
On your page,
That's
like on
awesome.
Twitter or sadvocacy.com?
No, on Twitter. Find me on Twitter. I'm going to make it a pinned tweet.
At Caryma Rules, Kickstarter, that is your tweet to write a book with a professor from Alberta on the legality around the convoy. Is that what I'm understanding? Like the laws?
Kind of. I mean, the convoy was not but more so their misunderstandings of the law, because all of this COVID denialism, freedom fighter stuff is based on just total lack of understanding. So let's tackle that at its root.
It's going to be a series of books if it is about the misunderstanding of the legal system in the convoy group. You're going to have to do an Encyclopedia Britannica.
Just going to say they're going to come to our doors selling us the entire set.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, great to see you, Caryma. Great job today. Caryma in Ottawa, there for the Pat King hearing. Pat King's bail got denied, making everybody happy except Caryma, because she's, like I said, nicer than us. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Caryma Saad, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Caryma. She's great.
Isn't she awesome?
What a great day. Like the amount of people that showed up here that are better than us, that did a great thing, they're just doing great things.
She's doing great things.
I'm in a good mood now.
Right? Aren't you in a good? I'm in a great mood too.
I was in a shit mood
before
for the
this
last 48 hours, and I feel good now.
Oh man, I'm glad we could help you.
Yeah.
Glad we could help everybody understand. What we do here is a little different. The goal for me isn't to tell everybody or show everybody how cool I am, or what I know or don't know, or wow you with strange facts about the world's biggest burger. That's not me. Our job here is to bring on people who are way smarter than us to help us understand life so that you can understand it too. In between those interviews, we'll shit kick a few people that we feel like shit kicking.
Some fart jokes every once in a while.
We'll talk about nuts.
Yeah.
Taints. We'll talk about puppies. We'll talk about kindness. We'll talk about meanness. We'll talk about good things. But the goal here is I think a lot of people think I do this for everybody else. I'm doing this so I can understand the world. That's why we do this, right? And we can.
It is a great excuse to have other people on and have conversations that you just want to have, that you would feel weird, like just phoning Amber Mack on the phone and saying, "Hey, what do you think about fate?" So you know what? I got a show. Come on the show. I'll get my questions answered. I'm going to be selfish and shitty and steal all this information, but in the same time, I'm going to share it with you guys too.
Well, that's it, right? Like it's either a phone call or I can put it on DM here and everybody else can follow along and then we can have some fun doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think
normal.
It was great. Yeah, and if people just took that step, just take that step to open your eyes, log off of Facebook, go and actually read some stuff, talk to people that are experts in those fields.
I had a feeling the other day. I had a feeling. I want to run this by you before we go. Just a feeling. Ryan Lindley, Sheeple Shepherd Podcast. Just a feeling. This is my feeling that I had. I had a distinct feeling when I was thinking about people that do not believe the truth or facts, like choose to ignore facts in favor of something else. I had a feeling it's probably way easier.
It has to be.
For all of these people that we say we hate, that we don't understand, that try to visit hate and hurt on other people, that won't get vaccinated, think the devil's going to enter your bloodstream through your wiener if you masturbate, all that stuff. All these people, it's like they believe those things because it is way easier for them, because if critical thinking is involved, people will implode. Like, I know
especially
people,
if you don't have the faculties to.
That's it, right? Those are the vulnerable people that we all got vaccinated for. It doesn't make it any easier to fucking fight them on Twitter, right? It doesn't make it any easier to fucking walk by a guy. I walked by a dude the other day and I was wearing a mask and he's like, "Nice mask." I was walking out of No Frills. It's like, "Nice mask." By the way, I only go to No Frills for pantry items.
Hot tip.
Hot tip. Only get your pantry items at No Frills.
Don't get fruit.
No. Or the meat, especially if it's a little grayer than most. But excellent selection of food.
MEET.
Yeah. My buddy owns one around the corner. He's awesome. He's actually got great stuff. But anyway, I don't want to talk about no frills.
Off in the weeds.
But it's so much easier for all of those people to believe in a magic god, to believe in a conspiracy theory, because it's really hard to explain unfair to them. Because they can't do it. They can't fucking do the math in their head. They can't go, wait a second, that guy treated me like shit. I suffered for it. And that means everyone's out to get me. That's what happens across the brain. And then instead of going, that guy treated me like shit, I need to understand that I don't control other people. Then I need to get on with my life. Like, that is how healthier people think. The angry people go from, I got fucked, that was unfair, let's fight.
Yeah. I have a theory, and it ties into your theory here as well. And it's, they get mad. And it's out of frustration, obviously, because of not understanding. If you don't understand something, you get frustrated. And people that aren't, typically grew up not, having the advantages of education or the advantages of parents that actually fucking hug them, like shit like that. And it culminates, and then we've talked about this 1,000 times. They finally found a group that they can be in the same room or Facebook chat room with each other, and community. And it's a sense of community. And we've seen the drastic drop in organized religion and the drastic rise in these silos on social media of these private groups that are extremist on either side. And there's no way that those are not correlated. There is no way that those are not connected, where the organized religion goes away. They take bits and pieces that they like, just like they do with religion, and they've incorporated it. They say they love God. They say that, but they haven't stepped church or a foot in a church in fucking years. You know it. But they'll still use that as their crutch or their shield to, this is why I'm doing this, to protect my God-given rights, and my God is my savior, and I don't listen to you. But it's like, okay, well, what about these things about loving everybody else? Fuck them, It's
that too, but
mess.
this is more important right now. Yeah. And then I had another feeling. I hate to share two feelings before the end of a show on a Friday, but I will. Then I had another feeling. I was laughing about it because I was like, I was going, I get why all these anti-vaxxers and conservatives think it's great that Putin's attacking Ukraine. He loves white people more than anything. Like, loves it. And what did we see in Ottawa? Honkyville.
A lot of white people.
Angry. The organizers, all white supremacists. All of them. All of them. All of them to a person are probably stoked that Putin invaded the Ukraine. Every single person who has been, like Fox News, go Putin. Wow, yeah. Of course. Because their goal is to protect white privilege, which is what Putin is all about. Like, I mean, it all comes together. The sickness in the brain that a lot of these people have, it all comes back to that privilege, doesn't it?
I think so, and that's why I wonder if it's a diminished capacity by way of the way they were raised and the way they were given that. So, who entitled you to this? Is this a generational problem? Obviously, we have a generational problem with entitlement and with being from a first world country that. I made this point yesterday where with your brother, our democracy is old. Our democracy is established. The reason why we see such a fight in Ukraine right now, I think, is because their democracy is young. They've seen it. They've grown it themselves, and that's their pride. Their pride is in that. These nationalists that we have here are just fucking lazy. All that hard work is already done. They're now reaping the benefits of that hard work and doing none of the work to get to put. Like, this democracy isn't something that it doesn't grow on its own. You need to nourish it. You need to fertilize it. You need to tend to it. You can't just let it. You can't rely on being lazy and I hate when somebody says I'm a proud Canadian. I hate that fucking line because I want to know why. What are you proud of? What did you do to make Canada so good that you're proud of it? Like, you can be proud of a pie you baked. You can be proud of a painting you painted. Why are you a proud Canadian? Just because you fucking live here? Why? Mm-hmm. It's a lazy way of of relying on the hard work other people have done to get us to this point, and you're shitting on it, and you're wiping your ass with the Canadian flag, doing your fucking bullshit. It makes me mad. So when somebody says proud Canadian, you better have something to fucking back that up, because, you know, like, I'm proud to be a part of a country that loves other people. I'm proud that one of the first things that we said about Ukraine was we're going to cut the red tape to make sure that we can get refugees into our country. Ireland just dropped the visa requirement immediately. The Minister of Justice from Ireland went on and said, no visa requirement. If you're from Ukraine, get over here. Come on. No problem. Doors open. And really? Everybody else is kind of following suit, right? So that's the kind of shit I'm proud to be a part of, but I'm not proud because I did it. I didn't fucking do anything. I'm just as privileged as everybody else. But I'm not going to rely on that as an excuse to the entire fucking world of, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm a Canadian. I'm a proud Canadian. It's my right. It's like,
you know, when those people say I'm a proud Canadian, you know what they really mean is that I'm white. I've been here a long time, and I'm white.
Yeah, I'm white and better than you.
And I'm in the West, so that matters more than anything.
Yep.
Those are the same people that pull up to a stop sign, like a four-way stop. They're white, and the three other cars at the four-way stop aren't. And they're like, I get to go first because I'm Canadian. I'm white.
Yeah, it goes right down to just shit like that. You're right. Yeah. It goes down to that stupid, the entitlement bleeds into every morsel of their being.
Totally.
And it makes no sense. So sorry.
Well, it doesn't make sense to us.
I had to let that
no,
off.
I'm glad you did.
I've been holding that back, and it's more than 140 characters. So thanks for letting me.
No, I'm glad you did. Melissa loves it when you get ranty.
Oh,
I think she's got a thing for you too. She's like, I like that Ryan and his bald head. Mm-hmm. Ryan is the owl. Am I right? Angelica wants to know. She's right. I don't know if he's the owl. Pretty smart dude though, but it makes sense. I mean, it all makes sense. It makes sense to me. Makes sense that this country of like ultra freedom, unbelievable freedom to come and go as you please in this country, decisions that you get to make on your own. It makes sense that a certain segment of us forgot about how important that was and looked at the last 2 years like oppression. Makes sense, right? Because if gratitude is real medicine, they haven't been taking any for a long fucking time. They don't know how to be grateful about anything because they don't have anything to measure their gratefulness against or lack thereof.
Yeah, they haven't.
Send them to the front lines. Send them to the front lines in Ukraine. If you want to fight that bad, if you want to fight tyranny, that's where it is. It ain't here. I just recapped our emergency order day, how I did 15 things and did whatever the fuck I wanted. There are people in their apartments right now in Kyiv building Molotov cocktails on behalf of the president, who handed out 18,000 AK-47s to the citizens of Kyiv yesterday. 18,000.
Yeah, I saw the pictures.
Hundreds of thousands of incendiary. Like, it is on. That is a fucking problem. This is not. So that makes perfect sense to me, Ryan, what you just said. It's like new democracy. Problem. Everybody's going, this is the best. I can't believe. That's why Ukrainians are going to fight until they're dead if they have to, is because they've tasted real democracy,
what we
true
have.
Freedom. This is what we do, right?
Have.
Yeah,
yes.
They tasted it. And they live next to a total cunt, like a crazy cunt. And he's like, fuck it. I want that country and all their shit. And they're like, okay. They sent their women and children out. Let me play you a fucking video. This happened today. Well, it's a father sending his family away so that he can go and fight the war in Ukraine. This is this morning. This happened today, this video. This is real, man. This is So that's going on now. And it's not one person. That's not one dude. There's like millions of fathers sending their families to Poland, Hungary, Romania, Moldova, anywhere that'll take them, because they're trying to get, and they're fighting because they've tasted that. They're grateful for that democracy. They love their freedom over there because they haven't had it for a time, and now they have it. They're not giving it up, man.
And you know,
and over here, Over here, we're taking our pants down, taking a huge shit on it.
Yeah, we bring our kids to the fight when we find out that the police might use tear gas on us, and we want to make sure that our kids are in front of it so that
softest fuckers ever.
That's what I mean. Like
I'm watching this whole thing in the Ukraine right now. Sorry, Ukraine, not the Ukraine. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's just ingrained to me because I'm an old fuck. But I watch what's happening over there, and then you equate using children as human shields to prevent people from going to work, to be an asshole in this country because someone asked you to wear a mask and get fucking vaccinated. I am so grateful to see the videos and the pictures and the human spirit that we're seeing come out of Ukraine. I am so grateful for it because now we have something to show these people when they say I'm oppressed. My life's awful. This is the worst existence. We're China. We're fucking Chinetta. Like that. Those things are. I want to go to Randy Hillier's house and I want to grab him by his fucking suspenders, throw him on an airplane, and send him to the front line so he can see what a dictatorship really is.
No, 100%. And it's the whole. I read something really good today about how there are more Russians that are against Russia than there are conservatives against Russia right now in the West. We saw protests, and somebody said, this is what democracy looks like. And I took a step back and I said, problem is it's a faux democracy in Russia. They're under a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. And yet, you want to talk about bravery? Those people, in the first 2 hours of that protest last night, 900 people were arrested. Anybody that was holding a sign got beat by cops. You might not see some of those people anymore if they were really bad, or according to the Russian police. You won't see some of them come back out. But you want to talk about brave when it comes to a protest? Go protest at Putin's house. That's brave. That's a brave protest when you're standing up to something that's tyrannical, or you're standing up against something that's a human rights violation that's in your Plato democracy that you fucking should try and show the world and you tweet about.
Oh, a little Plato democracy. You're going philosophy now. I like it.
Yeah, like it's bullshit. And so when you tell me that we're the same and we're oppressed just like they are, you lost me. You've lost the fucking plot of reality so far that I don't even know how anybody can get you back. I don't know if there's a team of people that can get you back. If you really believe that truly, you're gone. I think you're gone. I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. But I'm looking at a picture of a 79-year-old Ukrainian woman learning how to fire a rifle right now.
Yeah.
Valentina Kostanyakovasna is her name. 79-year-old holding a weapon during basic combat training for civilians. Yeah. This is an 80-year-old woman learning how to fire a rifle because she's tasted that gratefulness, right?
Yeah. And that one lady, did you hear the lady that went right up to the Russian soldier and just not aggressively, but had a conversation with him about how it was wrong. She thought it was wrong. He was there. And she asked him to place sunflower seeds in his pocket so that when he died, because he's going to die, the flowers would grow and something good would come out of his death. But she meant it. She didn't mean it as a bitch. She meant it for real. She's like, there's the only good that's going to come out of you being here is when you die, you can fertilize a flower.
Yeah.
And I thought that's and
right in his face too. If you saw the video, she's standing there and the big dude's got a gun and he's talking to her and she's like, yeah, that's nice. Do me a favor. Before you leave, put a bunch of sunflower seeds in your pocket so where you die, flowers can grow because that's what's going to happen to you. And then she just walked away.
Yeah.
And fucking it wasn't just him. It was like 16 other dudes standing there with fucking assault rifles in the middle of a city in the east. And I can't remember what the name of it was.
It was their second city. They call it they call it not Kiev, but the other one. They call it their second city. It's like a sub capital. But I feel, and I do feel for the Russian soldiers because they've fallen under the same fucking mind meld disinformation from their own government for years.
Well, did you hear the first wave of soldiers? Like I was watching a report yesterday and I read this thing on Axios this morning. It's like almost all of the soldiers that are on the front lines heading into Ukraine are juvenile delinquents from detention centers that they grabbed out of the homes and sent to the front lines in December and had to beat them to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the Russian guys are just fucking, as soon as they came into Ukraine, they just split.
Yeah, they
Like
left
16,
all their
17-year-old kids are putting down their guns and they're running away from it. And they've actually, the Ukrainian army has actually taken a whole bunch of land back. I mean, like, they're not just fighting this army, they're fighting them tooth and nail. And the Russian army is more like a 3 dressed as a 9. So
it
like,
really is.
It seriously is. Like, I worry, obviously, for the human cost, but Putin's going to have his ass handed to him. You're watching it. Like, you're seeing it. There was like a 4-mile stretch of highway that was littered. Did you see that? Littered with like burned out, which is what Russia will tell you, burned out tanks, what do you call them? The big buses to carry troops. I can't remember. There's a name for it. I lost my mind. Anyway, there's like a lineup of these burnt out military vehicles because Ukrainians aren't giving up.
No. Oh, God, no. And you said it perfectly, the 3 dressed up as a 9. You could put me in a Lamborghini that I wouldn't know how to drive, and you could put a NASCAR driver in a fucking Hyundai Pony, and he's going to kick my ass because he knows how to use that tool. If I don't know how to drive a Lamborghini, I wouldn't know how to drive I don't know how to use it. I'm not going to win a race. And the same thing goes with this army. They don't have a skilled army, and then every army or military expert will tell you this. It is what you said. They grab from the gulags and throw them in a tank, and here the gas is here, the brake is here. You push this and then fire the gun. Yeah, and I think that's what it is. They're trying to like do it by mass and by big talk and big tough. But now I think with the advent of social media being part of this war, so like where you have people on the ground, like actual citizens in a democracy, because they're allowed to tweet, and taking pictures, and you're actually seeing it now. We're actually seeing the curtain and in The Wizard of Oz getting pulled back, and there's Putin with his pants down, because they're getting annihilated, and they shouldn't be by all rights that I ever thought, and I'm guilty of this as well. I really don't think they're going to do that great.
No. They're going to lose.
You know? And now NATO also today did announce some special sanctions that they were imposing as well, and also special support that it's unprecedented special support that they're sending, which means troops. It means 40,000. Air defense, naval defense. We've never seen NATO defend a non-NATO country. So we're setting a precedent today, and I think it's to I don't know if it's to stifle them or if I don't know if it's going to stun them, what it's going to do, but there's
after
a theory
that announcement, though, Putin was like, hey, do you guys want to meet?
Yeah, isn't that funny? Hey, phone's open.
You guys want to meet?
Yeah, I've opened my DMs if you'd like to chat.
Finally, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Lynn, thanks for doing this, dude. It's nice to break down on kind of some stuff, head into the weekend and have some fun, and talk about some serious stuff too, but also talk about some uplifting stuff, like the stories that we see that are coming out of not just the Ukraine, but coming out of Canada in regards to threats in this country and the way things are done. Man, we stood up to it, and I like the fact we're standing up to it for Ukraine, and I like the fact that we have some empathy here. So it's always good to break it down, and great to have you. Thanks for being here.
Great to see you.
Have a good weekend. You too. Ryan Lindley, Sheeple Shepherd Podcast, at Ryan Lindley on Twitter is where you can find him. That's it for us. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, Howard, Bigley, Stacy, Bill, Danielle, everybody, Van City. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us today. Lots of people in today. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to sign up for a newsletter at deanblundell.com. That's where you can get all the stuff, including podcasts, more, etc. And, Kathleen came in with a little ram ranch at the end. What's up, Kathleen? What up? But thank you, everybody, for spending some time in your week with us. Really appreciate it. Be good to everybody this weekend. Thanks to our sponsors and friends over at Ed's Fine Imports, edsfineimports.com. His Gitch are the best in the world. Get them, put them on your body. Gitch 3 is your promo code. Ed's Fine Imports, clothing for men and boys, huge online store. Order from him, Canadian made, his own brand, GITCH 3 is your promo code. Gitch from edsfineimports.com. Also, thanks to our friends at Easy Auto Financial for making this possible. Go to Easy Auto Financial right now if you're looking for a vehicle. Can't get financing anywhere. These guys are financing gurus, and they do not charge you for it. And there is no obligation. They don't want anything other for you to get in the car. They make everything turnkey as well. These guys are incredible. Go to easyautofinancial.ca and check them out today. Also, last but not least, Domination. Dominate with content. Dominate with your content by using them. Domination.com, DMNTN.com. Streaming, gaming, podcasting, what have you. It's AI that helps you do your promos in like a fraction of the time it would normally take you. So check them out today. They're good friends of ours. They should be friends of yours too. Go to domination.com for more information. DMNTN.com. Have a great day, everybody. Great weekend too. See you Monday. Bye.